Brett Kavanaugh vows to be an umpire, a neutral and impartial arbiter on the Supreme Court as the first day of his confirmation hearing was disrupted by protesters and Democrats alike. "A good judge must be an umpire, a neutral and impartial arbiter who favors no litigant or policy," Kavanaugh told senators on the Senate Judiciary Committee on Tuesday afternoon, over 2 hours after he was originally scheduled to speak. Day one of his time before the Senate committee was interrupted continuously by protesters expressing concerns about his record on abortion rights and Democratic senators demanding the hearing be postponed so they could have more time to read the documents from his time in the government. 70 protesters were arrested, according to a statement from U.S. Capitol Police. The day dragged on and grew so contentious that Kavanaugh's 2 young daughters were escorted from the room, although they returned in the afternoon to hear their father's opening statement. "My judicial philosophy is straightforward. A judge must be independent and must interpret the law, not make the law. A judge must interpret statutes as written. A judge must interpret the Constitution as written, informed by history and tradition and precedent. In deciding cases, a judge must always keep in mind what Alexander Hamilton said in Federalist 83, the rules of legal interpretation are rules of common sense," Kavanaugh said. Kavanaugh says he's proud of the more than 300 opinions he has written as an appeals court judge. "I tell people, don't read what others say about my judicial opinions. Read the opinions," he said. While his opening statement ended the day on a calm note, the hearing started off in a circus-like atmosphere as one by one, the protesters took turns shouting and being removed by U.S. Capitol Police, with one even being carried out of the room. And Democrats on the committee didn't even let Republican Chairman Chuck Grassley finish his opening statement before they demanded the hearing being adjourned so they had time to review 42,000 documents released to the committee Monday night. A Republican senator described the hearing as mob rule, while another GOP senator complained about being shouted down during his remarks, asking for the loudmouth to be removed. "It was so bad," Grassley vowed Wednesday's hearing, when senators will get a chance to question Kavanaugh, would be different. "I'm not going to let happen tomorrow what I let happen today," he said. "You guys have been very successful today at running the committee, and I don't want that to happen tomorrow." Daughters Margaret and Liza had joined Kavanaugh and his wife Ashley at the hearing's start, with younger daughter Liza holding Kavanaugh's hand as he entered the room. Kavanaugh was supposed to introduce his family early on in the hearing, but the interruptions from protesters and senators delayed that part of the proceedings. So the girls left the room as Democrats expressed their concern about their father's stance on executive powers, abortion rights, and gun rights, topics that will likely come up over the next 2 days when Kavanaugh faces questions from the panel. President Donald Trump defended his nominee and slammed Democrats in a tweet sent while Kavanaugh was giving his opening statement. The Brett Kavanaugh hearings for the future justice of the Supreme Court are truly a display of how mean, angry, and despicable the other side is. "They will say anything and are only," he wrote, "looking to inflict pain and embarrassment to one of the most highly renowned jurists to ever appear before Congress. So sad to see." Kavanaugh was introduced to the Senate panel by Condoleezza Rice and Sen. Rob Portman, both of whom he served with in the George W. Bush administration. Lisa Blatt, an appellate lawyer in Washington, D.C. and self-described Democrat, rounded out the introductions. Kavanaugh, a federal judge in Washington, D.C., expressed gratitude for his friends as he goes through the confirmation process. "This past May, I delivered the commencement address at Catholic University Law School. I gave the graduates this advice: cherish your friends. Look out for your friends. Lift up your friends. Love your friends," he said. "Over the last 8 weeks, I have been strengthened by the love of my friends. I thank all my friends." He also expressed his love of his family, whom he first introduced to the nation in July when Trump officially nominated him to the Supreme Court. He said of his wife Ashley, "This has not exactly been the summer she had planned for our family. I am grateful for her love and inspiration. Ashley is of kind soul. She always sees the goodness in others. She has made me a better person and a better judge. I thank God every day for my family." He said his daughters Margaret and Liza will be around over the next few days. "My daughters Margaret and Liza will be in and out of this hearing room over the next few days. In the time since you last saw them at the White House, I am pleased to report that Margaret has gotten her braces off and has turned 13. Margaret is the sweetest girl you'll ever know. As for Liza, "Well, I tell her every night that no one gives a better hug than Liza Kavanaugh," he said. He concluded his opening statement with an optimistic note and with reassurances for the committee members. "I look forward to the rest of the hearing and to your questions. I am an optimist. I live on the sunrise side of the mountain, not the sunset side of the mountain. I see the day that is coming, not the day that is gone. I am optimistic about the future of America and the future of our independent judiciary. I revere the Constitution. If confirmed to the Supreme Court, I will keep an open mind in every case. I will do equal right to the poor and to the rich. I will always strive to preserve the Constitution of the United States and the American rule of law," he said. Senators found themselves having to pause during their opening statements as screaming protesters disrupted the day. Democratic Senator Dick Durbin acknowledged the protesters in the room. "What we heard was the noise of democracy. This is what we hear when free people stand up to speak," he said. "It's not mob rule." He went on to address the pressure on Kavanaugh and his family. "There are times it is uncomfortable. I'm sure it was for your children. I hope you can explain it to them," he said. And Republican Sen. Ted Cruz of Texas apologized to Kavanaugh for his daughters having to experience the protests. "I'm sorry your daughters had to endure the political circus this morning," Cruz said. "That is Washington, alas, in 2018. Republican Senator Ben Sasse also apologized to the family and said he was happy the girls could leave. "I'm glad your daughters could get out of the room, and I hope they still get the free day from school," he said. Tuesday marked the first day of Washington, D.C. schools. Circus was an appropriate description of the day as Tuesday's gathering was dominated by shouts from protesters, complaints from Democratic senators, waving signs, removal of disruptors by U.S. Capitol Police, and a committee chairman banging his gavel calling for regular order. "Please vote no," one person in the hearing yelled to the Senate Judiciary Committee members. Trump's presidency was also invoked. "An illegitimate president cannot make an appointment to Supreme Court," another shouted according to reports from the room. "This should be an impeachment proceeding," another yelled. "If you vote for Brett Kavanaugh we will replace you," one threatened the senators. Another protester said, "My daughter deserves the right to choose." "Stop the oppression of women," roared one protester after the hearing resumed following the lunch break. "This is a mockery and a travesty of justice," another yelled. "Be a hero," one protester implored senators. "Vote for our children," screamed another. "Hell no Kavanaugh," yelled a protester. Roe yes, Kavanaugh nope, read one sign held by a Code Pink protester in reference to the landmark Supreme Court case Roe v. Wade that legalized abortion. Outside the hearing, protesters dressed in costumes from The Handmaid's Tale greeted senators arriving for their first day with Kavanaugh. The distinctive red robes and white hats were donned by the protesters as they stood in silence in the Hart Senate office building. The women were portraying the characters in the popular dystopian drama The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu, based on the 1985 book by Margaret Atwood, where women are forced into sexual servitude and denied basic rights. The group said they were there to protest Kavanaugh's anti-abortion, anti-healthcare and anti-women views. Brett Kavanaugh is an extremist ideologue who, if confirmed to the Supreme Court, will take away women's basic rights, they said in a statement to the Hill newspaper. Kavanaugh is replacing retiring Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy, who was often a swing vote on controversial cases. Kavanaugh, a more conservative federal judge, is expected to move the High Court to the right. Republican Senator John Cornyn described the hearing as mob rule. This is the first one for a Supreme Court justice hearing I have seen according to mob rule, he said. The shouts continued to ring out throughout the hearing, at least every 15 or 20 minutes, with senators pausing in their opening statements to allow police time to remove the disruptors. Among the people arrested were actress Piper Perabo, Ultraviolet co-founder Shauna Thomas and Women's March co-founders Linda Sarsour and Bob Bland, the Huffington Post reported. Code Pink protesters, who are a regular presence at Senate hearings, were arrested. The Center for Popular Democracy Action and the Women's March said they have about 70 people planning to risk arrest. The interruptions went on throughout the day. We're disrupting the Kavanaugh hearings every few minutes, with hundreds of women prepared to get arrested to prevent these hearings from moving forward, read a tweet from the Women's March Twitter account, which describes itself as leading the fight to cancel Kavanaugh, because we can't stay silent as the rights women fought for generations to secure our take away. It got so loud one Republican senator complained about the protesters. "Mr. Chairman, I think we should have this loudmouth removed. We shouldn't have to put up with this kind of stuff. I hope that she's not a law student." Sen. Orrin Hatch asked of a protester drowning out his opening statement. "I expect the police to do their job and the committee to go on," Grassley replied. Hatch, who had to raise his voice at various points in order to be heard, complained again at the end of his remarks. "Frankly, these people are so out of line they shouldn't even be in the doggone room," he said. And he apologized to Kavanaugh. "I'm sorry you have to go through this nonsense," he told him. Kavanaugh spent the majority of his day sitting there quietly as the chaos reigned around him. At times he scribbled notes on a pad. Women and many Democratic senators are concerned Kavanaugh would be the deciding vote on a Supreme Court case that could overturn Roe v. Wade and make abortion illegal. During a lunch break in the hearing, Fred Guttenberg, whose daughter Jamie Guttenberg was one of the high school students killed in the Parkland High School shootings in February, wrote on Twitter he tried to talk to Kavanaugh, who turned away from him. "Just walked up to Judge Kavanaugh as morning session ended. Put out my hand to introduce myself as Jamie Guttenberg's dad. He pulled his hand back, turned his back to me and walked away. I guess he did not want to deal with the reality of gun violence," he wrote. But the White House pushed back, saying security had stopped Guttenberg from speaking to Kavanaugh. As Judge Kavanaugh left for his lunch break, an unidentified individual approached him. Before the judge was able to shake his hand, security had intervened, White House Deputy Press Secretary Raj Shah, who's handling Kavanaugh's confirmation, tweeted. But Guttenberg snapped back at Shah, saying Senator Dianne Feinstein, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, introduced him. Incorrect. I was here all day and introduced by Senator Feinstein. No security involved. He turned and walked away, he tweeted in reply. The protesters in the hearing were aided by Democratic senators who didn't even let Republican Chairman Chuck Grassley finish his opening statement before they demanded that hearing be adjourned. "I would like to have this be a peaceful session," Grassley said of what is the first day of a week's worth of hearings on Trump's nominee. Grassley said the hearings would go into Sunday if needed. Democrats plotted a coordinated protest strategy over the holiday weekend and all agreed to disrupt and protest the hearing, NBC News reported. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Grassley led the call. "There was a phone conference yesterday and many issues were raised," said Democratic Sen. Dick Durbin of Illinois. Democrats were concerned about 42,000 documents given to the committee on Monday night and that they did not have time to read them. "I move to adjourn this hearing," Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut proposed with fellow Democratic senators like Cory Booker supporting him. Grassley refused to entertain such a motion. "This is something I've never gone through before in 15 years of Supreme Court nominations," Grassley said of the hearing's start. A half-dozen Democrats interrupted committee proceedings in succession to ask for a delay. The committee received last night, less than 15 hours ago, 42,000 pages of documents that we have not had an opportunity to review or read or analyze, Sen. Kamala Harris interjected. "We cannot possibly move forward, Mr. Chairman, with this hearing. We have not been given an opportunity to have a meaningful hearing on this nominee." Grassley struggled to maintain order as Sens. Cory Booker, Patrick Leahy, Mazie Hirono, Sheldon Whitehouse and Richard Blumenthal jumped in on the action. "I move to adjourn," Blumenthal said. "Mr. Chairman, we have been denied real access to the documents we need." Blumenthal accused Grassley of turning the hearing into a charade and a mockery of our norms. Kavanaugh sat blank-faced as the spectacle unfolded. Grassley told his colleagues, "We will continue as planned." It was committee Democrats, several of whom are rumored presidential candidates, who stole the show. Republican Senator Orrin Hatch acknowledged the politics in the room. "We have folks running for president who want that moment in the spotlight, who want the TV clip. Frankly, I wish we could drop all that nonsense," he said. Booker objected to keeping the hearing going. "What is the rush? What are we trying to hide by not having the documents out front?" Booker demanded. The New Jersey senator called into question Grassley's character, infuriating the 84-year-old Iowa senator. "I respect a lot of things you do," he told the senator with whom he's worked on criminal justice reform, "but you spoke about my decency and integrity." He rebutted, "I think that you are taking advantage of my decency and integrity." For more than an hour, lawmakers went back and forth as Kavanaugh. Democrats have been engaged in a full court press to derail his nomination, framing it as a referendum on Trump and a motivation builder in advance of the November congressional elections. Cruz charged the party with trying to relive the 2016 election. "This fight is nothing more and nothing less than an attempt by my Democratic colleagues to relitigate the 2016 election," the Texas Republican said during the hearing. On Monday night, the committee received 42,000 pages of documents about Kavanaugh's years with the Bush administration. That prompted complaints from Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, saying that not a single senator will be able to review these records before tomorrow. Democrats also blasted an exertion of executive privilege on the Friday evening heading into Labor Day as 11th hour. "We're witnessing a Friday night document massacre," Schumer said Saturday, referring to a scandal involving disgraced President Richard Nixon. President Trump's decision to step in at the last moment and hide 100,000 pages of Judge Kavanaugh's records from the American public is not only unprecedented in the history of Supreme Court nominations, it has all the makings of a cover-up. Schumer charged that Republicans in the Senate, the current president, are colluding to keep Judge Kavanaugh's records secret and trying to hide their actions from the American people by doing it on the Friday night of a holiday weekend. What are they trying so desperately to hide? Democrats did some 11th-hour heel-dragging of their own on Monday, writing a letter to the White House counsel that claimed the Trump administration is trying to hide a significant portion of Judge Kavanaugh's White House record, an act it called deeply concerning. Grassley wants Democrats to stop complaining about documents and get to work. The Iowa Republican said Monday that the Kavanaugh nomination has produced more documents on Kavanaugh than on any other nominee in history. Kavanaugh's spokesman, White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary Raj Shah, also fired back at Democrats on Monday morning as both sides prepped for battle. The respect for constitutional privilege has been consistent with how every recent Supreme Court nominee had been reviewed by this committee, he told DailyMail.com. "This is pretty much a made-up controversy." Shah said that the White House has produced more documents than the last 5 Supreme Court nominees combined. He said that Democrats have had more time to consider Kavanaugh's nomination than last several recent nominees by a week. "They have ample time, ample information to review his record," the Kavanaugh spokesman said. Taking a swipe at the other side, Shah noted that many Democrats said from the start that they weren't planning to consider Kavanaugh's qualifications at all. "This is a charade. We have a hearing set up this week. They can review his record, ask questions, just like they have past Supreme Court appointees," he said, and then weighed his nomination fairly. Shah reflected on the hyper-partisan nature of the nomination and said, in any normal circumstance, he would have gotten a big broad bipartisan support. Democrats argue that it's Republicans who broke the nomination process, however, when they opposed a qualified judge who Barack Obama wanted to put on the bench on the grounds that decisions of such magnitude shouldn't be made in an election year. Tuesday's opening committee session will be consumed entirely by opening statements. Every senator on the panel will have time to stem wind and posture before a global TV audience, and the more aggressive question and answer session will get underway on Wednesday.